Welcome to the deep dive.
Hey there.
This is where we take source material, the articles, the research, sometimes whole books, and we really try to pull out the key insights.
Yeah, the goal is to give you a shortcut, basically. So you get genuinely well informed on something important, but without wading through all the dense stuff yourself.
We filter it, find those surprising bits, and lay it all out so it hopefully sticks.
Hopefully.
That's the plan. And for this deep dive, we're jumping into a book that's all about, well, the art of letting go.
hmm Stopping those negative thought spirals, finding emotional freedom. It's packed with some really practical stuff.
It really is. So our mission today is to unpack those strategies.
Right, to pull out the actual tools you can use day to day. Things for quieting your mind, releasing that nagging self-doubt.
Letting go of toxic feelings, dealing with anxiety, regret.
Even fear of change. We
Yeah.
all hit those walls. The idea is to find actionable ways to move forward, maybe with a bit more confidence, more clarity.
So we'll be touching on some pretty cool areas. Ancient philosophy, like Stoicism.
Yep. And modern psychology, too.
Yeah.
Things like understanding your inner critic, what they call psychological distancing.
And concrete techniques. Mindfulness, externalization, practical tools.
It's definitely a journey, but we'll guide you through the key landmarks.
Okay, let's dive in then. Where does the source material start us off?
Well, it really builds on a foundational idea, something from Stoicism, specifically the philosopher Epictetus. It's called the dichotomy of control.
Ah, yes, the dichotomy of control. I find this so incredibly powerful. It sounds simple on the surface,
It does.
but actually living it, that's something else. The core idea is focusing your energy only on what's truly within your control.
Exactly. Your thoughts, your judgments about things, your intentions, and importantly, your actions. That's your sphere.
And then, just as crucial, is letting go of attachment to everything else, all the external stuff.
Right. Circumstances, what other people think or say, the final outcomes of things. Epictetus believed understanding this difference was absolutely fundamental for, well, a peaceful life.
Didn't he talk about three faculties of the mind that are key here?
He did. Your judgment, how you think about things, your beliefs, your desire, what you want or fear, and your will, basically, your intentions and actions.
Getting those three in balance is where the work lies, right? Because those are the things you can steer.
Precisely. Let's make it concrete. Say, your supervisor criticizes your work.
Okay.
You don't control their opinion or the words they used, or even if the criticism was fair, maybe.
Right, that's external.
But you absolutely control your judgment about it. How you interpret it, how you feel about it, what you decide to do next, that's internal.
Or like prepping for a job interview. You control the research, the practice, your mindset going in.
Totally. But you don't control who else is interviewing, the interviewer's mood that day, or the final hiring decision.
Yeah.
Trying to control that is just anxiety fuel.
Yeah. Or planning a picnic and it pours rain.
Classic example. Can't control the weather.
Nope. But you control adapting, moving it indoors, finding something else fun to do, your response.
Exactly. And focusing your energy there on what you can influence, it just cuts out so much unnecessary stress about the things you simply can't change.
It frees up energy for what matters.
Tied right into this, the Stoic idea, is the importance of the present moment, maintaining focus right here, right now.
Which again sounds simple, but our minds are like time travelers, constantly jumping to past regrets or future worries.
They really are. So it's about training the mind consciously to stay engaged with the present.
And mindfulness meditation is a big tool for that, according to the source.
Huge. And mindfulness isn't mystical. It's just directing your attention to what's happening right now, your breath, sound, sensations.
With curiosity, openness, and crucially, without judging it.
Yes, that non-judgmental piece is key. The book is a really nice practical example, integrating it into your morning routine.
Oh yeah, like how?
Just simple things. When you wake up, really feel your feet on the floor for a moment. Brushing your teeth. Pay attention to the feeling, the taste, the sound.
Instead of already planning the day or replaying yesterday.
Exactly. In the shower, feel the water, smell the soap. Notice thoughts that pop up, but just let them drift by without getting hooked.
It's like mental strength training for staying present.
It is. It anchors you. And you build this deeper awareness of your own thoughts, feelings, physical sensations as they happen.
Okay, so foundation is control what you can, be present. Makes sense. Now, moving inwards, how we deal with our thoughts, judgments, and that infamous inner critic.
Right. Non-judgmental thinking comes up again here. It's this practice of observing your thoughts and feelings without slapping labels on them, good, bad, right, wrong.
Just noticing them.
Just noticing, acknowledging their presence. This is vital for letting go because if you don't immediately judge a negative thought or feeling, you're less likely to get stuck on it.
Ah, so you avoid piling on guilt or shame?
Exactly. It fosters acceptance. Let's take that work mistake example again. Instead of, I messed up, I'm incompetent.
Which is a harsh judgment.
Very non-judgmental awareness would be more like, okay, I made an error, I feel embarrassed, frustrated. Acknowledge the feeling kindly, then look objectively. What happened? What can I learn?
It separates the event from your identity.
Hmm.
And the source mentions our judgments are often just initial reactions, right? Maybe not even accurate.
Often influenced by our past experiences, our biases. So reframing is suggested. Instead of labeling, describe facts and acknowledge feelings.
Like seeing someone driving erratically. The judgment is reckless idiot.
Right? The reframed observation is, that driver was speeding and changed lanes suddenly. I feel unsafe and angry.
Yeah.
See the difference? Behavior and feeling, not character assassination.
Yeah, that's much more manageable. Less emotionally loaded. There was a story about a woman, right? Optimistic generally, but super harsh on herself.
Yes. Her internal monologue was full of, I should have done better, self-blame.
How did she shift?
By consciously changing that self-talk from, I should have, to, what's the lesson here? Or simply, I did my best in that moment.
So valuing herself, regardless of the outcome, that's big.
Huge. It wasn't tied to perfection anymore. Which leads us to those repetitive judgments, those negative thought loops we get stuck in.
Oh yeah, those are fun.
Aren't they just? The material suggests a 3-step process to tackle them. First, objectively describe the judgment gently. No harsh words.
Okay,
Like, I notice I frequently criticize myself for being disorganized. I tend to use negative labels like messy or lazy. Just state it.
okay, step 1, describe. What's next?
Step 2, recognize the emotions it triggers. When I have this judgment, I feel overwhelmed, maybe inadequate, frustrated. Link the thought to the feeling.
Makes sense.
And third,
Third.
envision life without that judgment. What would that feel like? If I could release this, maybe I'd feel calmer, more motivated. Perhaps I could take small steps and actually notice my progress.
So imagining a different reality opens the door.
It can, yeah. It breaks the paralysis. That I'm so disorganized thought keeps you stuck. Envisioning letting it go allows you to think about small, manageable actions.
Which flows right into the inner critic.
Perfectly. That persistent, negative internal voice. It loves to point out flaws, shame us, especially when we're feeling vulnerable.
And the book challenges the idea that being hard on ourselves is motivating.
Strongly. It argues the opposite, actually. That harsh self-criticism often leads to shame, anxiety, resistance. It traps you in a cycle that prevents real change.
It fuels that not good enough feeling, imposter syndrome.
Exactly. And then paradoxically, you might procrastinate or numb out with distractions just to get temporary relief, which holds you back even more.
And shame is particularly crippling, isn't it? Makes you want to hide.
It really does. It isolates you and feeds the critic.
Yeah.
So how do you counter it? The material suggests using wisdom, strength, and love.
Okay, explain those. Wisdom.
Wisdom is using mindfulness to notice the critic's voice and recognize it as the critic separate from your actual self. Challenge its story. Strength is actively pushing back. Acknowledging your actual achievements, your positive qualities, reminding yourself of your worth. Don't just passively accept the criticism.
And love.
Self-compassion, treating yourself with the kindness you'd offer a friend going through a tough time. Soften the harshness.
Like that example of social anxiety, the critic says, you're awkward.
Right. Wisdom says, that's the critic talking. Strength says, I've had good conversations before. I have good qualities. Love says, it's okay to feel anxious. Be kind to yourself for trying.
The source also gave specific steps for letting go of the critic, right? Beyond wisdom, strength, love.
Yes, a kind of practical sequence. First, awareness. Just notice when it pipes up and what situations trigger it.
Got it. Awareness first.
Second, identify the misguided belief underneath.
Yeah.
What's the core assumption driving the critic? I'm not worthy. I'm fundamentally flawed.
And that belief often links to an unmet need.
Often, like a belief I'm unlovable, might stem from past rejection, pointing to an unmet need for love and belonging. Identifying that is powerful.
Okay, third step.
Connect with your actual emotions beneath the critic's noise. Not just the anxiety it causes, but maybe sadness, frustration, anger. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling here? What am I afraid of? And also look for opposing positive feelings, like self-compassion.
Interesting. So dig deeper than the surface reaction. Fourth,
Show empathy toward the critic. It sounds weird, but
empathy for the critic. Really?
yeah. Recognize it might be a very clumsy defense mechanism trying to protect you from past pain based on old programming. You can say internally, I get why you're scared, or I know you're trying to help, even if it's not helpful now.
That creates distance.
It does. And finally, fifth, express your response. Take back control. State clearly, internally, that this critical voice isn't helpful. Assert what you actually need instead. Support, confidence, connection, reassure yourself.
The example of Jess really brought this together. Has she worked through her anxiety and not good enough feelings using these steps?
Yeah, it shows how you can reframe that internal dialogue and loosen the critic's grip over time.
Another useful concept mentioned was shifting from perfectionism to excellenism.
Excellenism, yeah, coined by psychologist Patrick Godin. It contrasts with perfectionism.
Perfectionism being that relentless drive for flawlessness, unrealistic standards, fear of mistakes.
Which often leads to anxiety, burnout, procrastination, because the bar is impossible.
So excellenism is what? Still high standards, but realistic.
Exactly. Focus on continuous progress, not impossible perfection. It embraces mistakes as learning fuel. It encourages resilience and creative problem solving.
So it's not about lowering standards to mediocrity?
Not at all. It's about recognizing that progress is the goal, not some unattainable, flawless state. That perfectionism actually gets in the way of real achievement and well-being.
How do you know if you're stuck in perfectionism?
Good question. Ask yourself. Do I constantly beat myself up for not meeting my own sky-high standards? Does my inner critic hammer me for every tiny flaw?
If the answer is yes.
Then maybe shifting towards excellenism could help. Start small. Focus on improving one thing incrementally. Celebrating the progress, not demanding instant perfection. It quiets the critic.
Okay, powerful stuff on the inner landscape. Let's talk about creating distance from tough emotions or situations. Psychological distancing.
Yes, or self-distancing. It's about creating mental space. Viewing intense emotions or conflicts more objectively, almost like an outsider looking in.
What are the benefits of doing that?
You get a clearer, more balanced view. It helps with problem solving, boosts creativity because you can think more abstractly, and crucially, improves emotional regulation. You're less swept away.
Like Kiara's example, feeling overwhelmed, then visualizing herself in an airplane looking down.
Exactly. That perspective shift made her problems seem less immediate, less overwhelming. It gave her calm and clarity.
So how do we practice this? What are the strategies?
Several ways. One is simple physical or temporal separation. Literally step away. Take a 15-minute break, leave the room. That pause creates objectivity.
Like Danny in the argument with his boss, taking a break, helped him cool off.
Right. Another is cognitive reappraisal, actively reinterpreting the situation, seeing a challenge as a growth opportunity, a failure as a lesson. Danny used his break to think about his boss's perspective, too.
And the language trick, using the third person.
Yeah, that's surprisingly effective. Instead of, I am angry, try saying your name. Mac is feeling angry. It creates a subtle but real separation from the feeling.
Or imagining looking back from the future, like the athlete Andrew visualizing his Olympic anxiety from an older perspective.
These techniques help you observe your own internal stuff more objectively, so you're not totally fused with it. It helps you move forward.
And this connects to non-attachment, right?
Right.
Letting go of clinging.
Absolutely. Non-attachment is about releasing that need to control, to possess, to hold on to things too tightly, whether it's outcomes, possessions, or even specific feelings or identities.
But it's not indifference, is it? It's not about not caring.
Not at all. It's more about embracing impermanence, the natural flow of life. Accepting that things change. Releasing that desperate grip actually leads to more freedom and less suffering.
It's an idea found in lots of philosophies, East and West.
Buddhism, yoga's aparigraha, even Christian warnings about material attachment. It's about letting go of rigid cravings, fears, expectations.
How does it apply in relationships? It doesn't mean being cold or distant.
No, it means engaging really, loving deeply, but without clinging to specific outcomes or demanding the relationship never change, accepting its fluidity, cherishing the present connection.
Linda's solo travel story fits here, letting go of attachment to the familiar.
Perfectly. She had to let go of needing safety and predictability, and in doing so discovered her own strength and creativity.
The material also brings in acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT.
Yes, specifically the idea of psychological flexibility and distinguishing self as content from self as context.
Okay, break that down. Self is content.
That's when you rigidly identify with your thoughts and narratives. I am an anxious person. It's a fixed identity.
And self as context.
That's seeing yourself as the container or the context in which thoughts, feelings, and experiences occur. They come and go. You are the observer. So, I am anxious sometimes, or I'm having the thought that I'm anxious. It's more fluid, less defining.
So how do you cultivate that self as context, that non-attached view?
Several ways mentioned. One is challenging the notion of normal. Focus on your growth, your values, not arbitrary societal benchmarks. Do your life your way.
Another was sometimes thinking.
Exactly. Just adding sometimes to those fixed I am statements, I am incompetent, becomes I feel incompetent sometimes. It introduces flexibility. Helen used this with her anxiety.
Recognizing interdependence is another point. We're not islands.
Right. Our culture stresses individualism, but our well-being is linked to others. Collaboration often works better than pure competition. A win-win mindset. Helen joining the writing group for support illustrates this.
And being open to feedback.
Crucial. Seeing feedback as data for growth, not an attack. Think of a leader who listens versus one who resists it. Makes a huge difference. Helen getting feedback on her thesis.
And finally, holding multiple perspectives, actively seeking out different views.
Yes, like the marketing manager Sarah asking her diverse team for input. Or in a family conflict, trying to understand everyone's angle. It adds richness and stops you getting locked into one narrow view. It requires self-reflection too. What stories are limiting me?
It all ties back to letting go of needing things to be exactly one way or needing total control.
Precisely. Embracing complexity, diversity of views, and letting go of controlling outcomes builds resilience.
Okay, let's pivot to facing specific hurdles. Change in the past. Starting with the fear of change.
Embracing change is core to a growth mindset, seeing challenges as learning opportunities.
But it's scary. Why is change so hard?
It's natural. Loss aversion, we hate losing more than we like gaining. We crave stability, control. Change feels disruptive, uncomfortable, requires effort.
And there's that emotional cycle of change, Kelly and Connor's model.
Right. It highlights the emotional roller coaster. It's not just logical.
What are the stages again?
Starts with 1, uninformed optimism, excitement, ignoring the costs. Then 2, informed pessimism, reality bites. It's hard, doubt creeps in.
Then the dip.
3, the valley of despair, lowest point, feeling overwhelmed, benefits seem distant. Lots quit here.
But if you push through.
You hit 4, informed optimism, you see progress, belief returns. And finally 5, success and fulfillment, the change is integrated, feels normal, benefits are clear.
The gym routine example nails that. Initial enthusiasm, then soreness and wanting to quit, then seeing results, then it becomes habit.
Exactly. So overcoming the fear involves tackling underlying fears. Failure, criticism, reframe them. Failure is data, not identity. Criticism is input, not gospel.
Jasper's story about starting his business showed that reframing.
Yeah, seeing potential failure as learning. Also, reframing change itself as opportunity. And breaking big changes into tiny steps helps overcome our natural resistance to discomfort.
Okay, moving from change to dealing with the past. Toxic people and self-forgiveness. Heavy topics.
Important ones, though. Toxic people are defined as those who consistently deflect, blame, manipulate, gaslight, make you doubt yourself.
And the key point is, their behavior isn't necessarily about you, but it harms you. Stress, anxiety, low self-esteem.
Definitely. The source gives questions to ask yourself. Do you feel drained around them? Less confident? Questioning yourself? Needs ignored? Those are red flags.
Why is it so hard to break away sometimes?
Can be complex. Sometimes it mimics abuse cycles. Periods of niceness give false hope before the pattern repeats.
So how do you manage these relationships? What are the strategies?
First, assess the distance needed. It's a spectrum. Maybe reduce contact, keep interactions superficial, use a mediator, or in some cases, cut ties completely. Safety is paramount.
Then boundaries.
Absolutely critical. Identify unacceptable behaviors. Communicate your limits clearly, calmly, firmly. I won't discuss X. I need you to stop Y, and then enforce them consistently.
Choosing the right communication method matters too.
Big time. Public place with a witness. Email for documentation. A letter just for yourself. Depends on the risk and relationship. Safety first.
And don't get drawn into over-explaining.
Right. Toxic people can twist your words. Be clear, direct, firm. This isn't working for me. I need space. You don't owe a lengthy defense.
Prepare for a potentially bad reaction.
Expect it. It might be anger, guilt-tripping, drama. Remember, their reaction is theirs, not a reflection on your valid decision. Feeling guilt is normal. but don't let it sway you.
And finally, hold those boundaries
Yeah.
relentlessly.
Yes, it takes ongoing effort. Block online if needed. If they test the boundary, calmly reassert it. We already discussed this. I'm not comfortable talking about that.
Okay, shifting to self-forgiveness. It's not about excusing yourself.
Not at all. It's about accepting what happened, taking responsibility, learning, and moving on without being trapped in self-blame or shame. It's strength, not weakness.
It involves things like responsibility, remorse, restoration.
Yes, the steps outlined are: 1. Understand your emotions, distinguish guilt about actions from shame about self. 2. Accept responsibility, acknowledge the mistake and harm, drop excuses.
3. Self-kindness, vital. Be compassionate towards yourself, even when admitting fault. Everyone messes up. See it as learning.
4. Express remorse. Genuine regret motivates change. 5. Make amends, apologize sincerely, try to repair harm if possible.
6. Learn the lesson. Why did it happen? How can you do better? 7. Commit to improvement. Actively try to apply the lesson learned.
The example of the falling out with a friend walks through all these beautifully. Owning the hurtful words, feeling the remorse, apologizing, learning about communication, committing to change.
And letting go of resentment towards others, perspective taking is key.
Hugely helpful. Actively trying to see the situation from their viewpoint. Why might they have acted that way? What was going on for them?
It doesn't mean excusing bad behavior.
No, but it can help dissolve the intensity of resentment. Maybe the harm wasn't intended, maybe they were struggling. Social psychologist Van Manen suggests considering their motivation, their perspective, how it affected them.
It adds those shades of gray instead of just they are bad.
Exactly. It requires openness and curiosity, but it helps you release that burden of judging and resenting, freeing you up.
Okay. Wow. We've covered a huge amount. From Stoic foundations of control and presence,
To managing judgments, the inner critic, using wisdom, strengths, love,
creating psychological distance, navigating change and its emotional cycle.
dealing with toxic relationships, the vital work of self-forgiveness and letting go of resentment through perspective.
Plus those practical tools like brain dumping and externalization we touched on briefly, ways to get thoughts out and separate from anxiety.
Yeah, brain dumping to clear mental clutter.
Yeah.
Externalization to see anxiety as separate, something you can manage, not something you are.
So these are all concrete strategies from the source material, tools available to you.
Things you can actually pick up and use to find more inner peace, less self-doubt, more emotional freedom to move forward.
With more confidence, more clarity, that's the aim.
But like any skill,
Mm,
it takes practice, consistency, patience with yourself.
definitely. So, maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Yeah.
Choose just one thing we talked about today, just one. Maybe it's trying, sometimes thinking next time a harsh self-judgment hits.
Or maybe identifying the misguided belief behind your inner critic. What's it really trying to protect you from, however clumsily?
Or something simple, practicing presence during your morning coffee, really tasting it, feeling the warmth.
Just pick one small thing and
Yeah.
notice what subtle shift might happen in your day, your mood, your response to a challenge.
If you consistently applied even just that one tool, what might change for